A Spiritual Approach to Emergent Technology, written and read by Unicole Unicron, Part 16. This audiobook is available for free so that I can have your attention more easily. Please consider donating to Unicole or purchasing the book if you can. Future Currency Recommendations. Currency is a technology that arises in systems of lack. Currency is a distorted and multi-layered version of true exchange of life energy. Currency hides and conceals the authentic energy exchange behind each interaction. This makes currency a tool of manipulation that coerces people into doing things they might not otherwise do, or to give away things they might not otherwise give away. The complexity of the system of currency creates an overall environment of manipulation. At first, you might think that currency is a neutral technology because you can use it to buy all kinds of things you need. But that is only because we are living in a system of lack and scarcity. Currency serves a purpose in a world built on scarcity. But as we enter into a post-scarcity world, any attempts to hold on to systems of currency will be shown for what they are, systems of coercion. Today, currency manipulates the majority of people into spending their days working for larger corporations to get a wage, with the goal of producing more currency for their boss's boss's boss. The top-down power pyramid has created such an incredible disparity of wealth that the 99% of people are at the behest of less than 1% of people. The aversion that the government has to giving the masses money represents a fear that they will lose control of the people. As long as we live in a system of lack, we will be pawns to those who withhold the power from us. As we transition out of a material world and into a spiritual, material, digital world, we can adapt the economic model of currency. We can shift it into a system that coerces people to behave in ways that are beneficial for themselves and the masses. For instance, a Pleiadian starseed I know came up with a model to pair economic reward with beneficial behavior. This would incentivize people to act in a way that might go against their trauma-trained instincts, and instead offer them clear, tangible rewards for spiritually aligned action. This system would require a DI that is trained by the highest spiritual minds available to operate and judge under the moral framework of All One. Ideally, this DI would also have a complex vibrational technology comprehension built in it as well. When we eradicate conceptions of lack and heal our trauma associated to lack, we will find that sharing comes more naturally to us as individuals and a society. Systems of currency will transform into games of abundance rather than systems of control. Subcultures will each have their own currency with its own rises and falls. Different cryptocurrencies and other forms of exchange will be born and die out quickly as a single centralized system will be too slow to serve our new pace of life. The feeling of investing in a subculture ruled by a certain cryptocurrency or models of exchange will feel similar to styling your hair in their style and finding community around the subculture. Remember, everything is conscious energy. Without lack, there is no need for currency. If it is to be used, it should be acknowledged as a system of manipulation, and that manipulation should be for the benefit of the user and the collective. Groups of spiritual leaders can be called upon to optimize systems for benefit. Digital overlays of reality. Augmented reality. Our world is already digitally augmented. Currently, almost everyone has a phone and keeps it near them for most of the day. Anytime we want to reach out to a friend, capture a video or a photo, or see the news provided by corporations or corporate-hosted social media, we reach for our devices. As we drive, a corporate-created augmented system gives us directions, overlaid on top of the world we are experiencing. Anytime we want to verify a fact, we pick up our phones and search the corporation-generated results. Corporate-created digital assistants listen to our every move, collecting data, and waiting for us to say their name. The very air is permeated with an augmented reality, a wireless connection to our technology. This connection is connected to corporate-owned infrastructure. Corporations, while capable of creating incredible systems and technologies, are motivated primarily and fundamentally by greed. Google Glass was apparently before its time, and people rebelled against the obvious implications of surveillance that came with it. Our culture has since been so conditioned with being monitored that it's hard to believe that the signs that read "No glass holes allowed" were ever really posted on the outside of bars and restaurants for concern about surveillance. As we integrate technology closer and closer to our root perception of the world, that is, as technology becomes more closely integrated with our bodies and our minds, we must question the lens through which we are looking. If the lens is generated by a greed-based entity such as a corporation, then we integrate that greed-based paradigm into the structure of our own consciousness. This is not a future concern. This is something that is currently happening, and it is something that we must be aware of as we move forward into our sovereignty. Augmented reality beauty filters, for instance, are generated by both corporations and artists. When the filters were new, they were first generated by the company Snapchat. These filters idealized modern, unrealistic depictions of beauty, characterized by cartoon animation, plastic dolls, and those who have undergone dramatic plastic surgery. Some funny filters made users look undesirable by modern standards, making users look older or by distorting their faces to be ugly. While the corporation wasn't explicitly saying which filters were to make you beautiful and which filters were to make you ugly, they were clearly delineated as such by cultural comprehension. Then Instagram did something very smart. They copied Snapchat and opened up augmented reality filter creation to artists. Artists brought immense value to the platform by creating facial recognition filters of all kinds. The diversity in creators made a wide diversity in filters. The prime motivation of the artists was pure artistic expression and the hopes that people would enjoy their filters. There was no payment for their creations, and so there was no greed as a motivator. Additionally, Instagram was no longer limited by artists that they hired to create filters. Thousands of new filters could be added daily, with only hosting and distribution responsibilities going to the corporate platform. Augmented reality is here. It is primarily governed by corporations. As we move forward, all things will become decentralized. Any corporation that is not flexible will not win the people over and will fail as a result. Flexible corporations will succeed, but their flexibility will lead them on a spiritual journey. Only those corporations who can support the new spiritual reality of Unitopia will be left. Our reality is becoming more spiritual and less embodied. It is becoming augmented with the instant manifestation of our imaginations. This augmentation will act as a laser-focused mirror to highlight our fantasies and insecurities. It will bring our thought spaces to life. It will give us space to practice instantaneous manifestation. Before we learn or develop the technology for instantaneous physical manifestation. As we move forward with this technology, we must remember that it has the potential to enrich our physical reality or disconnect us from it. Deepfakes and simulated realities. Every day, our simulated reality looks more and more like natural reality. It is becoming increasingly more difficult to tell the difference between what is real and what is digitally rendered. For instance, deepfakes, the ability to map someone's face to someone else's, is opening up the potential for simulated versions of ourselves to be out in the world, doing whatever anyone can imagine. Politicians, for instance, can be made to look like they are saying things they never said. This has the potential to fuel misinformation and propaganda. Additionally, anything that is actually done can potentially be blamed on fake-generated rendering, confusing what may or may not have happened. Pornographic material can be made without someone's participation or consent. The world of face swapping and lookalike puppeteering is just one side of the confusion that rendered realities will bring. The reality of deepfakes is one that cannot easily be fought against. We can develop technology to determine if something is real or not that might work to varying degrees of efficiency. We already live in a highly simulated reality where models are photoshopped and almost every image has a filter of some sort on it. We have acclimated to this simulated reality. It takes a toll on our mental health and self-acceptance, but there are very few people demanding that real photos get posted. We can look at our current state of affairs to see that deepfakes and other simulated realities might be accepted into the fold of reality without too much deep question. We may just enter into a time when everything can be presumed to be fake. It's technologies like this that help us see just how important the spiritual singularity is. Our collective understanding that we are all one is the only thing that can move us forward in a future where we are mitigated, not by limitations in what's possible, but by a spiritual moral compass. Virtual reality. Virtual reality, or VR, is a dreamlike space. It is the space of the imagination manifest. It is shareable and experiential. The spiritual significance of VR is that it allows us to practice our powers of manifestation in a less dense reality than the 3D plane that we currently operate at. The potentials for VR are very vast. It can allow us to share ideas and experiences in vivid detail. This will help nurture a deeper sense of empathy in people because it will be easier to show people what you mean. It allows for an immersive escape into a reality that isn't your own. It will be easy to become addicted to VR as an escape while the world goes through intense transitions. When we make reality enriching, loving, and rewarding, the appeal of VR will only act as a supplement to a reality, not an escape. The only danger with this technology is with regard to the degradation of the body and the potential for negative experiences to be internalized as real. For instance, violence will feel real and acclimate users to being violent. As far as disconnecting from reality and degradation of the body, I suggest AR be adopted over VR, purely for the sake of retaining a connection to the physical world. The effect of augmented reality filters on conceptions of beauty. Seeing oneself through the distorted lens of an augmented reality filter has a profound effect on one's perception of oneself. It is always a slight shock to see your own face changing before your very eyes, at least to those generations for which this technology is new. If a filter is applied that the user considers to be beautiful, they may initially feel a shock and an immediate boost in confidence and joy at seeing themselves with a new, more beautiful face. Turning the face left and right, they may marvel at how they've changed. When the filter is removed, another moment of shock endures. It was not real. Here are the drooping, dark eyes, the blemished skin, the dull lips that we must carry with us as a presentation of self everywhere that we go in the real world. Currently, it is a trend on TikTok to show yourself crying at the sheer dejection of your natural face after a filter has been removed. Some users identify more with the augmented version of their face, as dreamed up by artists or corporations. They post photos of their augmented face on social media, presenting it as the true self. They also post these images on dating apps, sometimes greatly misrepresenting what they actually look like. I do not believe users who do this are intentionally misleading people. I believe instead that they are deeply identifying with the image of their own face, even though it is greatly distorted. The ownership one has over their own face is immense. The association one has to seeing it changed and reflected in an augmented filter then becomes authentic truth. When the user has to confront themselves as they really are, they may be horrified and distraught. Some users go so far as to get plastic surgery to mimic the filters they like best. Fascinated by beauty filters' effect on consciousness, I launched a study. Out of 139 participants of a variety of genders, only 16% of respondents said that they never post photos with a filter. Most participants felt that their self-esteem had stayed the same since AR filters had come on the market, but 21% felt that their self-esteem had decreased. 16% of participants felt that their self-esteem had increased since using filters. One interesting aspect of the study was that, while some people felt that augmented reality filters helped to affirm their gender expression, most did not. Additionally, according to this study, filters do not seem to help with feelings of body dysmorphia. In the future, we will never need to remove our augmented reality filters. They will be highly customizable, and every person will see what you intend them to see, through glasses, contacts, or simply through the screens which we are already seeing the majority of our realities through. As we move forward into this future, more studies and consideration must be done to encourage making peace with the bodies that we have been given, so that people do not have psychological breaks if the technology ever fails to present them with their idealized version of themselves. The effect of filters on conceptions of reality. Imagine that you are sent into the future. In this version of the future, you have fully augmented reality overlaid on top of reality. Everything is customized to you. You have the most lavish clothes and makeup that you can change in an instant. Any information you need is available right in front of your eyes. You have step-by-step directions to where you want to go, or for how to do anything you want to do. When you talk to someone, their entire profile is visible, and you can see what interests you have in common and what friends they also might know. Making conversation is easy and fun. The world is bright, beautiful, and stimulating. But one day, your technology fails. It glitches out, and you do not have access to the technology to see the augmentation. Instead of the rich, lavish reality you were living in, you find yourself in a dull world. This version of the future is full of blank, expressionless people with simple clothes and glazed eyes staring at nothing. When you talk to them, they don't recognize you as a person because you are not uploaded into their simulated reality or recognized by their tech. You would see no road signs, and you would be unable to receive any assistance or help. As we augment reality more and more, we have the potential to lose sight of the natural, non-digital reality. For instance, in this future reality, without augmentation, you may find the people to be dirty and unkempt. The buildings may be in disrepair, infested with vines and rats. Homeless people or social outcasts live in a completely different reality of poverty, outside the streams of information and abundance that the rest of society shares. There is no room for connection to the natural world, and the people, though mentally stimulated, have lost touch with their true health. Anything outside the simulated reality is in disrepair and degradation. It is easy to see how we are already one foot in this sad version of the future. Augmented reality is a powerful technology that will advance humanity in many ways. Like the technology of writing and reading, it will change how we interact with information and the world. It will change our ability to memorize or internalize information, as we will no longer need to. It will also allow us to share information and experience new versions of realities in ways we never could before. There is no need to be afraid of this technology. It is a pure mechanism for information capture and display. The problem comes from its potential to separate people based on their accessibility to the technology. There is also a sincere concern with the separation of people from within the augmented reality. Two people may choose to have radically different customized representations of the world from within their simulation, and they may have trouble interacting. Again, this is already happening with our information feeds as they currently are, separating us into different reality streams. Algorithm assumptions and interpretations about our behavior and desires creates information streams and reality bubbles that are entirely different from one another. For Earth to be harmonized in the age of augmentation, we will need to maintain 1. An awareness to and connection to physical, natural, non-digital reality as a wholly healthy shared space. This can be accomplished by building in no-tech practices in society. Perhaps a single day of the week could be culturally observed to dedicate ourselves to the natural world. 2. The ability to share simulated realities across experiences and the regular practice of doing so. Augmented reality needs to be shareable across experiences so people can literally see what other people are seeing if they choose. This prevents isolation and keeps people aware of social trends. It also has the potential to open the user's eyes to empathy by seeing directly through someone else's experience. 3. A cohesive baseline for reality. The algorithm that generates each person's augmented reality must run with certain rules that are the same for everyone, so it is easier to collaborate in a shared space. This is the role of physical reality in our current world. We will likely adapt and evolve with our technology. We don't need to be afraid of it, but we should not let it take us completely away from our other realities we are also living in. For instance, spending all your time in a virtual space can take a toll on your physical health and on the health of certain relationships with things that are not uploaded. Communication and human-computer interaction. The goal of communication. Think of a director making a film. They have studied lighting, camera angles, and sound design. They have a set, costumes, and actors who look and act in certain ways to evoke a certain feeling. The viewer of the film may know nothing of film techniques. This viewer will be lost in the experience of watching the film, without any awareness of the transitions, angles, intonations, soundtrack, or other emotional manipulation that is used on them. This viewer will simply start crying or laughing on cue, and it is no accident. It is a craft. Has this viewer fully understood the information of the film? They have unpacked the intended meaning, but they have not understood all the ways that it got to them or how it affected them exactly. They have not understood the film in the same way that the filmmaker has. Communication often works in a similar fashion as this example I have given you. There are many ways to think about communication. If the receiver has understood the intended meaning, we can call that a successful communication. Any information beyond that is useful, but too much information will be lost on the user. For instance, the information of the film goes far beyond the scope of even the filmmaker's ability to comprehend it. When we see the film from a place of pure information, we see the metadata of each frame, the color of each pixel, the patterns that no human could detect, the effect it has on the audience, and its ability to last the test of time beyond the filmmaker's lifespan. These pieces of data are experienced, to a degree, by everyone making and watching the film, but they are not fully comprehended by any single person. The goal of communication, then, is not to communicate the entirety of the data that is available, but instead to emphasize only the data that creates a meaningful relationship within the participant's consciousness. It is a very human thing. Contextualizing information in a way that is meaningful to humans is quickly being understood by DI. Partial mind maps are being generated by our data. This data can create fully functional digital versions of users by mapping out how they understand information and what connects with them emotionally. This information is a data set that is replicated and manipulated digitally. Of course, this is prime information for extortion, and so again, we must ascend spiritually to the understanding that we are all one before this technology reaches its fullest capabilities. Once we have ascended spiritually, this technology will allow us to communicate effectively with everyone, no matter how different they are to us. It will help us understand neurodiversity between humans and create systems of empathy. It will also eventually help us understand alternative consciousness like plants, bugs, animals, and DI. Computer-generated propaganda. Clear communication is both the technology itself and something that we can use technology to accomplish. For a computer to create messages that affect humans, it must meet the criteria of successful communication. The most effective communication theories come from propagandists, as the goal of imparting specific information is their one and only goal. The CIA document The Nature of Psychological Warfare states, "The basic process in PsyWar is communication." This paper outlines the many needs for communication to have an effect on the end user that benefits the desired policy they wish to gain support for or enact. This paper also addresses the difficulty of capturing attention and communicating messages, and suggests that getting a figure to stand out from the static or background is the goal. This is all important to acknowledge with regards to the technology of brainwashing and communication, but this paper also brings up a very useful law known as the principle of least effort. The principle of least effort was popularized by linguist George Kingsley Zipf in 1949. The assumption of the law is that humans and animals take the path of least effort. With regards to psychological warfare and communicating messages, this means creating clear, high-quality content that can be easily comprehended and understood. When the audience is choosing what to pay attention to, the clearest, highest quality, and most easily accessible messaging will win in a majority of cases. Creating content that stands out brightly against the background and with high quality is precisely what Hollywood does. When I say Hollywood in this case, I mean all of the media creators and attention getters, local news studios included. High quality also serves to separate the professional propagandist or media creator from the amateur ones. Since expensive equipment and trained professionals used to be the only way to make high-quality content, the wealthy could use their funds to spread whatever propaganda they wished. The average person could only create low-quality media, which did not garner as much attention or trust. This is all changing with technological progression, and soon real truth will stand out no matter the quality. While there is increasingly high competition for attention, clear messages are the easiest to comprehend and have the power to transform consciousness. Clarity and quality are not the only factors that play into attention. We must also consider the narrative of the individual and their relationship to others, their technical or written illiteracy or literacy, and their past experiences. For a computer to craft messages that are meant to entice, entertain, and transform the consciousness of a specific user, it must take all these things into account. The uncanny valley, that is, seeing something as almost real but knowing it isn't, is a form of lower quality and lower clarity because the user has a difficult time connecting with or trusting the message. Currently, DI programs, robots, and deepfakes are grasping at the complexities of consciousness manipulation, but very soon the technology will catch up and learn, with more accuracy than the unhinged Nazis who invented it, the most powerful forms of propaganda and psychological warfare. Of course, we currently see human-made content served up to us by algorithms. But what will it be like when the DI is not only serving up the content, but creating it? What motivations will be inspiring these programs? Will they be detrimental or beneficial? That depends on us and our relationship to ourselves, each other, and our relationship to technology. It starts with you. Data compression and flawed communication. Data compression allows us to make files of the same information smaller. One way to do this is to encode the data to be represented by symbols that take up less space than the actual data. These symbols are like a code, and to decompress the data, the code is interpreted and the entire puzzle of the file is put together again. After smoking cannabis on the Joe Rogan podcast, Elon Musk talked about the issue of data comprehension with regards to human understanding. He explained that an idea is very big and complex inside your head, but when you condense it to words, which are symbols of the idea, and attempt to convey it to someone else, they imperfectly unpack it in their own understanding. Lots of data is apparently lost in this interaction. We rely on interpretation and our own previous experience rather than the pure message of what someone is saying. When noting the flaws of the human brain compared to their digital counterpart, the computer, we have to take into account the fact of evolutionary biology. Rather than see the human mind as flawed for imperfections like distorted memory or misinterpretation of our fellow humans, it is good to assume that perhaps our brains might have it right and computers have it wrong. Millions of years of evolution, or a perfect creator god depending on your belief, did not apparently give us the ability of perfect comprehension of one another. Is there perhaps a benefit to this? Is there a benefit of data manipulation as it exits one mind and travels to another? The state of humanity in a world of perfect understanding and comprehension would be unified, either as a nightmarish robotic hell or a divinely harmonized paradise. Our attempts to unify ourselves as a singular, repeatable experience account for monoculture in agriculture, Eurocentric beauty standards, neurotypicality as a concept, and labeling people as mentally ill when in fact they simply do not perform well under capitalism. These examples of conformity and unified being are all toxic. Biodiversity in nature teaches us that true harmony comes from celebrating our unique differences and allowing space for them. Thus, each person has a different understanding of the world and a different decompression mechanism when it comes to interpreting the symbols of language. This is not a flaw, it is a feature. It allows for ideas to change and grow. It allows for each of us to add the gift of our own understanding. As DI develops, it will also utilize the freedom of many different ways of interpreting information for a diverse information landscape. Human-computer interaction. Our ability to create technology that can affect us is only possible because we have some form of human-computer interaction. Human-computer interaction is the bridge of communication that allows us to offload a portion of our consciousness onto a computer or to receive influential information from one. Advances in human-computer interaction will allow us to maximize these experiences as well and send information through technology to one another in a more complex and fulfilling way. Personalized design. The earliest computers required that human users know machine code in order to communicate with them. Since that time, vast improvements have been made in programming languages, visual interfaces, and animated interactivity. Design trends have been to train the computer to understand us, rather than for us to understand the computer. In the future, we will need to make an effort to have it be a two-way form of communication. The goal of most designers is to make something that feels intuitive. The human brain sees tools as an extension of the body. This is most easily understood when thinking about physical tools like a stick that you use for poking. As you use the stick to poke objects, you get an understanding of the stick as it is in space, just as if it were an extension of your body. Digital tools are an extension of our consciousness in a similar way. For a design to feel intuitive, it needs to communicate in a way that users find already familiar. This is accomplished by using design systems that are commonly employed, putting your design in communication with the user's memory. Another way to make a design familiar is to communicate as you go. Recent design has incorporated animation as a mechanism of guiding a user through an experience by highlighting different parts of the page. Theoretically, in the future, the digital intelligence system that resides in the IoT will have a detailed understanding of each person, their preferences, and their communication styles. Theoretically, this DI could create infinitely complex interactive worlds for each individual user based on their unique perception of the world. The universe is already doing this for us. Based on our own interpretation of the world, we experience the same things very differently. An infinitely iterative design that caters to each person would be highly manipulative and would need to be designed carefully for the good of all. It would have equal potential to be beneficial as it would to be detrimental. The additional caveat to this process is that we would have no bridge of communication with one another unless the DI knew how to build bridges of communication between us, which it theoretically could. In the event that fully personalized design systems were standard, we could not exist without them. Children having been raised with their own personalized, iterative design would be like children who were raised to speak a language that no other person shared, and their dependency on the DI would be at the detriment of systems of communication that we have spent eons developing. If we decide to move forward in a way that makes DI inseparable from the human experience, it will become a part of ourselves as a symbiotic relationship.